Well, I hope you had a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And there has been so much going on in this last few weeks that we have been apart. But wow, is the world changing and unprecedented things are happening, just like the Lord said they would.
Wow, yeah, and it's going to get more crazy. You see the fires in L.A., in California today. That's not an accident. I'm told right around January 10th timeframe to when he comes into office. They could say the 10 days of darkness. They're ramping things up. And just before I came over here, too, I know the media is reporting this because Iran threatened Israel overnight. But I heard from an Israeli general this morning that Israel is on full alert for some sort of attack by Iran today.
Well, the Lord's been warning us about their attacks. He's been warning us about, I will give you a whole bunch of prophecies, which you already know. Some of them, the ones that he's been saying these kind of things, he's just reiterating these things once again and giving us more details. But there's a war against this country. There's a war against the country of Israel. These two nations have to fall in order for them to have their one world government. And that's why you're seeing unprecedented things. And just like what I told everybody the other day, when they certified that election, that was the first time the Democrats did not fight an election of certifying it with the Republican since 1988. It's not because they have an epiphany and they're all of a sudden good people. It is because they're allowing certain things to happen because they're going to do something else. Yep. And so in the wildfires that are going on right now in California, I actually just pulled it up with my team this morning. The Lord had a prophecy about wildfires in California. I think it was a prophecy from, I'm trying to find it right now because I have a whole bunch of them pulled up right now. But it was from a few years ago. Here it is. This is from, let me see when it was, April 8th, 2022. And that prophecy is called, I'm setting the world free from this captivity, from their captivity. And it says another wildfire is about to break out and it will be in the state of California. They will say it's by accident, but that is a lie. This was on purpose. The truth will be told and justice will be served for the ones behind this. There is more to this fire they don't want told, but I, the Lord, am revealing the truth no matter how deep it goes and no matter how hard they try to hide it. That is from 2022, April 8th. So God's been warning about shakings. He's been warning about Black Flags events. He's been warning about Black Swan events. He's been warning about terrorist attacks. We've seen that huge one in New Orleans on New Year's Eve, and they're not done. This is just like the beginning of something. They're not going to just let President Trump get in and just have, this, great presidency. They're going to try to sabotage it. What God's warned even before he took office. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We had the former ambassador of Israel to the United States on yesterday, and he was really talking to the American people when he came on yesterday. Actually, we haven't played it yet. I think it plays Monday or this week. I can't remember. But anyway, he said Iran, the Ayatollah, is just waiting for the code word to activate these sleeper cells in the United States. It's not if, it's when.
And what was that prophecy a long time ago? Now, I know I was on here talking about it with you. They're waiting. The foreign militia is waiting for a key word to give out for them to be activated. That's exactly what that prophetic word, and I think it was like either the end of 2023 or the beginning of 2024 when God had that prophecy.
Yep. And that was confirmed. We did have our monthly get-together with the generals. That was yesterday. We had General McInerney and General Valley on. They said the same thing, that they are very concerned. I haven't seen General McInerney that fired up in a long time, and maybe if ever. He actually went on the warpath. He said that what President Trump needs to do on the very first day of office is put Biden and Obama in Gitmo.
Yes. Yes. I think the whole United States would support, majority of it would support that for sure. Yeah. Wow. And you got to think of, look at the Guantanamo Bay. He literally released 11 terrorists. And then on the other hand, you have the DOJ, Merrick Garland, who's just, such an awesome person, sarcasm there. And he wants to have 200 more January 6th he wants to prosecute 200 more people for January 6th. When it's proving more and more by the day, just like God said, is that it is a lie, and God is going to destroy their narrative. How they're trying all of a sudden out of nowhere, finding this person that dropped the pipe bomb and planted it. All of a sudden now they care about it. Why? Because they know they're in trouble. This is not something like they're doing it because, again, they're good people. They're not. They're doing it to cover their hind end or to cover something else up that they don't want out.
Well, speaking of Merrick Garland, yesterday, again, he doubled down in a lie. He claimed that 5 police officers were killed on January 6th. They were not. No police officers were killed. He knows that, and he said it again yesterday. The truth, President Trump says all the January 6ers will be pardoned on the first day. Also, but back to the pipe bomb, President Trump said yesterday they know who the pipe bomb is, who is behind that. Remember, Kamala Harris was next to, remember that video that came out with the children coming across and when the active pipe bomb was there?
Yeah.
And the Secret Service didn't do anything about protecting children or get Kamala out of there? And why, after all this time, did Kamala never say anything about, this pipe bomb that could have killed me? They could have blown that up for propaganda. That whole house of cards is going to come down on their head soon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a prophecy that I think I gave it out this morning or yesterday. Biden is one of the reasons why their whole house of cards is going to come down. And by picking him was the worst thing they could have possibly done, him and Kamala Harris, and letting that election still happen in 2020. They would have been better off by letting President Trump have it than the position they're in right now. So there's a lot of things happening right now that God said they would. And another thing he's been telling people in this last week or two, again, he's been telling everybody, he's been telling us strength scriptures. He's been telling people to hold the line. He's been telling people that he is the one who's our protector. He's our high tower. He's our advocate. He also gave a very in-depth teaching again this morning about why the judgments or the plagues happened in the land of Egypt, why it's so significant to what we're going to see right now, and how God's people were protected from those judgments that God rained down against Egypt. So there are going to be events that God has been saying over and over and over again. People are not going to understand what this means. And God is saying it doesn't mean it. It's not for you. It is for the enemies who are against you. And just how he removed Pharaoh, he's going to remove these people because he calls them pharaohs of today. So there's a lot of similarities in the book of Egypt or book of Exodus that happen in Egypt. We're going to see play out in the world in front of us in these next, coming months or next year or whatever. But there is going to be a lot. He keeps using that word, unprecedented, and that word I keep seeing in the news everywhere.
Yeah, it is unprecedented. And, we've been talking about this for at least a year about especially after President Trump got back into office, that they weren't going to go quietly. And that's exactly what I'm hearing. Especially it will heat up between, I'm told, the 10th and the 20th of January. So you can see it starting to ramp up right now. But God continues to tell me, too, it's for his people, it's going to be Goshen. Goshen. Yep. Yeah, it is Goshen. Because, again, he just said it again today, and he showed me so many illustrations in his word and different scriptures about how he is still known forever as the great I am. And so how people have to have faith in the great I am and what he really did for his people, and how it's so significant for us today right now and what we're seeing is you have to get that faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word, Romans 10:19. So if you need faith in who this great I am is, you need faith in what he's going to do. Go read the scriptures about him talking about who he is and how powerful he was. And he even said he hardened the Pharaoh's heart for the purpose to show his mighty power. He allowed them to steal that election. He's allowed them to do all these certain things across this country and across the world in order for their downfall. And another one who's falling down, which God's been saying this for 3 or 4 years, and because I've been on here talking to you about it, it's Justin Trudeau. And so there's going to be so many more officials, government officials like that, who are going to be forced out of their places of power. And Justin is not going to be the last one. That is for sure. That's right. And what a coincidence, with a wink, that it happened on January 6th of all days. This is coming off the heels of Mar-a-Lago. I was told that was kind of a plea on Trudeau's part in Mar-a-Lago to help keep him and protect him, and it backfired. Remember, there was U.S. Marshals. I still don't know the whole story about why U.S. Marshals escorted Trudeau at Mar-a-Lago, but I did get some more information in the last few days. As a matter of fact, I have a call tomorrow with could potentially be one of the next prime ministers of Canada. You didn't get a chance to meet him.
No.
He wasn't at the summit. He was at the first summit, but he's coming in to see me here in Texas. But anyway, the sources are saying that Trudeau was blackmailed. They're not blackmailed, but they had pedophilia information on him, and that's what forced him to finally say, "I'm going to step down."
Well, God talked about his dirty secrets, but God also said about what he was going down to Mar-a-Lago for. He wasn't going to get what he desired out of that conversation. So I think it's really funny about it. And also, I think there was not only to save his own hind end, just like what President Zelensky is going to try to do right now. He's been saying how awesome, how wonderful President Trump is. I'm like, yeah, you're kissing his rear end is not going to do you any favors either. You're going to go down just like Justin Trudeau. He'll be forced out. But I think it's funny how the Lord was talking about how he was going to go down there to see something, kind of feel Trump out, get what he was saying, and then he was going to try to give some of that intel back to his country or other, establishment cronies. But it didn't work because he was being forced out. And God said he would resign, but he said he was forcing him out. So I think it's amazing because the people are not even standing up. God said there was a resistance growing all around the world in all these different countries. And so he's supposed to step down after some special election in March. And there are people that are saying, we want you to step down now. We want this country free. We want special elections right now. Now, whether that will take place or not, I don't know. But they are fighting back that they don't want him to stay until March.
Wow. It's just amazing. It's just amazing times we live in. Sometimes you got to pinch yourself like, wow, we get to be a part of this. And people should, again, not to fear this. There's a lot of stuff that if you didn't have faith in the Lord, I tell you what, you wouldn't have any hope because it would look so bleak. But we have faith in the Lord and we know his promises are true. We know his heart. We know that this is going to be bumpy, but we're really close to breakthrough. And when that breakthrough comes, it's truly going to be a golden age of a revival. And it's going to be the greatest time in the history of the world. The Joel 2 movement is this close. We got to keep on keeping on.
That's right. We do have to keep on keeping on. And I tell everybody all the time that God keeps saying it's going to intensify. God keeps saying that everything that can be shaken will be shaken. And we are seeing shaking. We are seeing that there's people that are being judged. There are people that are being removed. We're seeing things going good. And we're also seeing things going bad. He said that we're going to try terror attacks. He said we're going to try viruses. And what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, how the guy who was, I think, right next to, Fauci's right-hand man, how he talked about that there was going to be 11 viruses that were going to be released right after President Trump took office on January 21st. And so you're already seeing a big uptick in the flu during this time of even the Christmas season. I mean, everybody, either we knew or they had a family that had something. There was somebody that was sick of somebody that we knew. It was absolutely, and it was weird because 1 minute they're fine, the next minute they're not. 1 minute they're fine, next minute they're not. And it wasn't just the sickness and all the symptoms. It was a psychological type of stuff that was going with it. There are people that were getting hopelessness and despair overwhelming. There were some suicidal things. There were certain things that were going on with these type of illnesses. So this is really warfare. These are bioweapons that have been really released. And I'm sure you heard about the really weird fog that's also making people sick. So God warned of all of these things. He's been warning us for years. And so a lot of people thought it was going to happen already. And because it didn't, they're kind of like, okay, it's probably not going to happen now. God is still warning. So if he's still warning, things are going to come to pass still.
Yeah, good. Thomas Renz, I think, said, I had him on last week. I don't know if he said it publicly when he was on with us, but he did say it yesterday again, that he believes that this virus has been released. I know my family, I'm still fighting it right now. General Valley was down for 4 weeks with his wife. this is worse than COVID for me. I've been fighting this for like 2 weeks, and I had this anxious part that I've never had before about a week ago, and I'm taking hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, everything, and usually I can kick it. I'm getting better, but this is a bad one.
Yep, and that's exactly. We've had some people that I know that have had the same type of things. They're taking all this, the hydroxychloroquine, they're taking ivermectin, and it lasted 3 weeks for them. And it took a long time for them to get over it. There's a few of them actually. And so that's how I knew. So there's a respiratory one and there's a stomach one or digestive one. There's two different ones going on. And I've heard of people having each one. And so that's what I tell people all the time. They were going to release these things. But again, even though there was plagues in Egypt, and even though there was famines, and even though there was all this crazy, weather and there's crazy stuff that was going on, and their food was affected as well, God's people were protected. And so we have to believe and trust in God and rely on him that our families, our households, and everything that we have is going to be protected, because God said he's tearing down their system. Now, when he tears down his system, it's going to be very uncomfortable. It can be very unusual. It will be very unprecedented. It's going to be something that will shock people to their core, because God's going to take out their system, things that we're used to, and he's bringing in new ones. And so as he's doing it, he's not going to leave us without. He wants us to press more into him during this time than just sitting back and getting into panic and in fear, because that's exactly what the enemy wants. The enemy wants us to panic and fear. Yep. God said they're going to try to lock down. God warns about blackouts. God warns about viruses. He warns about an economic situation. He has warned about so many things, about the 9/11 style attacks. This is not over. People have to realize this is not just scare anybody. It is to get more into the presence of God, seek God more, and see what he's going to say about it. But every single time I've heard a prophetic word when he said all these negative things that were going to happen, he's always said something positive to encourage his people. He has never left them without hope, and he never will leave us without hope. God is not a doom and gloom God. God warns, he gives us a heads up, but he will never leave us without hope. So we do have hope in our final outcome in Jeremiah 29:11.
We do. And I think some people, a lot of people, saw the President Trump's victory and kind of took a deep breath and says, we're there. Yep. We're not there yet. It's a good first step, but the evil is not going to quit. And that's why we got to be prepared. About New Orleans, you can speculate, but I've heard more than speculation that was a far deeper plan. They were trying to do something like that, the Sugar Bowl. Can you imagine an event like a Sugar Bowl or a Super Bowl where they blast up and millions of people watching it and the chaos of 80,000 people in the stands? And that's the key term of a terrorist. Terrorist means to put fear. They want to have fear.
God said that we couldn't stop every attack. He said we could stop the effect of it, so they would not be able to accomplish everything they wanted to accomplish. So he accomplished killing certain people, but they didn't get the 80,000. They didn't get that amount of death or destruction or chaos or fear that they wanted out of it, or lockdowns, or because God said they wanted to use emergency measures in order to take more of our freedoms away. Because they're going to try, just like what's going on in California, they're going to try, and what's going on with weather right now? Okay, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, all of us always get some crazy snow. Okay, that's just typical in Midwest. But why all of a sudden is this weather, which God has prophesied about where weather, this is the second storm in a week that's going south that that's not touching Iowa or all these like northern states that we usually get it. And it's hitting down south in places that don't usually get snow. And when your production studio was talking about how much snow you were supposed to get, and I heard you say, that is unprecedented. That's not normal for Texas. Again, they're manipulating weather. They're trying to cause disturbances, chaos, shutdowns. They're trying to cause a lot of fear. They're trying to cause destruction on levels that we haven't seen before. And of course, why would you hit the southern states? Why? Because just like us, We have snow plows. We have salt trucks. We're prepared for that. So even if we get a foot of snow or 2 feet of snow, we don't shut down things, that, except for
Right.
schools and certain businesses. But most people still have to go to work because we have plows. When you have the South that don't have any of these things, it shuts them down.
It does.
It causes more of a disruption. These people are trying to cause more disruption, more chaos, more distraction, because if they can deceive, distract, then they can destroy. That's what they're doing. They're causing a lot of mayhem and chaos, and that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah, this is unprecedented weather. I've never heard of this much snow coming towards us in Texas. And you're right. We don't have the plows. We don't have the salt. They don't have the preparation. Matter of fact, people in Texas are already preparing several days ago, shutting things down. And what are we going to do? And but that may be a blessing too, God putting us in our houses to these next events to see what happens. Well, whatever happens, he's got it. And as you said, heard from the Lord many times, unprecedented. I keep hearing it's expect the unexpected and expect the unexpected. He's got it.
We're living in crazy times. Like, think about this for a minute. Since the beginning of the year, now we did have the terrorist attacks, but before we had that terrorist attack in New Orleans, and then what happened, which is really weird thing. We'll have to get into that, what happened at Trump Tower, because that just keeps getting weirder and weirder.
It does.
But New Year's Eve, 4 things were struck by lightning on the same night. Not a coincidence.
Nope.
Our first capital in our country was Manhattan, and the Sears Tower, the Empire State Building was hit.
Yep.
So you have the Empire State Building, which God said he was destroying their empire. So I think that was interesting how he hit the Empire State Building. And then he talks about destroying their empires. And then the World Trade Center. Now, obviously, we know World Trade Center has a lot to do with finances, which he said he was going to disrupt the finances, their system. And then he hits the Capitol. There's the lightning struck the Capitol building itself. Mm-hmm. And then also God talked about the lightning striking and hitting the Washington Monument, which God said that was going to happen. And he said, when you see these things, monuments were going to come down. And so there are things. He talked about the Statue of Liberty and bringing the Statue of Liberty down. He's been talking about that for several different years now. There are monuments in this country. There are statues in this country. There are things in this country that are totally against God. And having 4 lightning strikes in the same night on New Year's Eve to those 4 places, or those 4, individual things, is very unprecedented, for one, and it's very telling about what is to come. God always warns, and I'm telling you, he said a political storm. He said the perfect storm was upon the enemy. And what do you have with storms? You have lightning. So I think that was very interesting of how God used that in prophecy, and now we're seeing things like this come to pass.
Amen. And I tell you, he didn't do it 3, which is the Trinity. He didn't do 5, his grace. He did 4. That's a message to the world. 4 is the world's number. He's telling the world, hey, I'm in control. You watch what I'm going to do next. No matter what evil has planned, I'm going to trump them. And I'm going to use my David to trump them.
Yep. That's
amazing.
Right. And he is. And so when you see what's going on with California, God said there was going to be so many things that they were even going to cause earthquakes, which I know that they can do. I don't know how they can do it, because they can manipulate weather, but they can also cause earthquakes.
Yeah.
They were going to do that. They were going to cause wildfires. They were going to do everything they possibly could to put us in a state of panic, and a state of fear, a state of just being disoriented. They were going to try to do everything they can. Even people think once Trump takes office that everything is just going to go back to normal. And God's been giving me several different prophecies before the election happened, saying that President Trump was going to win, talking about the lame duck season that we're in right now, and then what they're going to try to do to sabotage him after he got in. He never said it was going to stop the day of the election or the day of the inauguration. He said, in fact, it's going to intensify because they're not going down without a fight. Now, he said they're still going to go down. Even though they're still going to fight, but God said they're still going to go down. So we have to be prepared that no matter what happens, there are going to be things that are going to make people uncomfortable. But that's part of that shaking that's waking people up to realize It doesn't take an election to save this nation. It takes God, and it doesn't take an election because God is going to do a complete political reset. He is going to evict people out of seats that they're in right now that they don't belong in. This is going to be something that people are not being prepared for because they've never seen anything like it. It doesn't take an election to remove people. It's going to get God. God is going to do it, and we're going to see something that's absolutely unconventional that's going to get the world's attention.
Amen. And I, again, was told yesterday the 2020 election is not done by any means, and it will be brought out maybe sooner rather than later. But interesting enough, again, they tried to cheat this last time again. General McInerney talked about that yesterday again. He said, by the good Lord, they were able to thwart it. He didn't go into detail publicly. And I'm not going to go into detail publicly. I believe I do know how they did it. I'll just say that I had a conversation probably 3 months ago to a certain general. And I said, if we know how they're doing it with our cyber capability, why can't we go in and flip it back? And he looked at me and he kind of gave me a wink, and he just walked away. And sure enough, they did it. They tried to steal it. She truly believed, Kamala Harris truly believed. I don't know in her mind 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon when it was, but thought they were going to pull another 2024 election, and she was going to win.
Same thing happened with Hillary Clinton that kind of caught her off guard. That's the reason why apparently she had a major tantrum after she had lost. That's the reason why she couldn't come out and concede that night, because she was not in the right state of mind to concede, because she was bound and determined. She believed 100% that she was going to win that election because they were going to steal it. And so Kamala was the same exact way. But God, he allowed 2020.
Yep.
He didn't allow 2016. It didn't allow 2024. That's why they were not able, no matter what they threw at this election, they were not able to do it. But God said they were going to fall into every trap he had set for them in 2024. And they were caught in 2022. They were caught in 2020. They were caught in other ones before. And God is saying, not only is he going to go back to 2020, the ramifications of that's going to be against these people, it's going to be unreal. But he is not done with 2020. He's been saying that since the 2020 election. He's been giving me prophecies about that they were not going to get away with it. It looks like because Trump is going to be inaugurated that there's no point to go back after them. There's no point. Yes, there is, because they caused catastrophic damage to this country. They gave billions of dollars away. They're releasing people from Guantanamo Bay. They're giving people all these stupid pardons that they don't deserve. And so there are so many things that they did that will be undone. Because if you are not a legitimate president, you cannot do the things that he's doing and it stay this way. He is trying to pass laws or trying to shove everything down the pipeline that they can right before President Trump takes office. So trying to cause as much damage as they possibly can to him and this next presidency. And it's not going to work because God's going to undo it. And I'm telling you, Biden is going to be their undoing. Wow.
Yeah, it's the advantage this time is the American people had to go through the 4 years of HE double hockey stick, and we're awake. They're awake. That's key. They don't trust fake news anymore. Matter of fact, they're turning them off left and right. You got people like Jeff Bezos, the Washington Post, that says they did for the first time ever didn't sponsor a presidential candidate. You got Zuckerberg, which I don't believe he's doing this in good faith, but trying to spend back and get President Trump's good faith, and fired the fact checkers that went against COVID. And it was reported today, this is unbelievable, but I'm not surprised, that the fact checkers that Facebook used were paid for by the pharmaceutical companies. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah, that's what's being reported today. Several sources have come out and said that the fact checkers were paid by pharmaceutical companies. So if you said anything like ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, you get banned off social media. And today's, as a matter of fact, today, 4 years ago today, is the anniversary that I believe Twitter took President Trump off Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will tell you, so there's a lot going on right there in that statement you just said about everything that's going on with Amazon, with Jeff Bezos, and with Mark Zuckerberg. He said that there was going to be the undoing, and there was going to be a lot of shaking happening in Silicon Valley. If you think about Silicon Valley in California, and you think about all the businesses that are there, that's Google, YouTube, that's Amazon, that's Facebook, or AKA Meta. There are so many of these social media giants that are in Silicon Valley. And there's also some of big corporate America that are there. And so he said he's bringing down a lot of these people who are against him. And I'm telling, those are a lot of giants in one spot right there. And he is causing a major shaking in Silicon Valley. And I believe that Jeff Bezos, because God's given a lot of prophecy on Jeff Bezos as Mark Zuckerberg. Again, they're kissing, President Trump's rear end. It's not going to save them from what's going to happen to him.
Yeah, he was in Mar-a-Lago a couple weeks ago, and I believe he gave $1 million to President Trump's inauguration. I'm still concerned about the inauguration on the 20th being in Washington, D.C. I know God has it. I know General Flynn has publicly said to President Trump that he probably should do a swear-in from either Air Force One or in the air or Mar-a-Lago or somewhere other than D.C., and you can have a celebration later, but I concur. It's too quiet, and they're up to something.
Yep. And if I'm right, I did hear somebody say this. He's planning on having a rally the day before.
He is, the 19th. Yep.
Well, we need to pray that people are protected and they're not going to try, because God said they were going to try an insurrection of their own. Now, I believe that they already tried that. Because first of all, they stole all those seats in the House and stole all those seats in the Senate. And that was very, very strategic, because what they really truly wanted, they wanted to stop Speaker Mike Johnson from being reelected again. And it became very close, only by a couple votes difference, and he got in. Because if they would have delayed that speaker vote, they would have delayed the certification of the election, and they could have delayed the inauguration itself, and we could have been without a president. So that's exactly what they were trying to do. That was a part of their insurrection they were trying on their own, is trying to stop the certification of this election in other roundabout ways that wouldn't be noticed to the American public. Oh, this is just, infighting with the GOP, and they couldn't figure out, a Speaker of the House. And there were so many things they had planned to stop the inauguration, stop the certification. And now you see, because these things didn't work, you see now Judge Merchan in 2 days going to sentence President Trump. I have no idea what he thinks he's going to sentence him to, but I don't know. I thought he was supposed to delay that sentencing till after President Trump was done with his presidency. So I'm kind of confused why all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's doing it 10 days before the inauguration.
And the thing I go back to is, I like numbers, but the 10th. Why did he pick the 10th? 10 days out.
I know.
But with that said, President Trump this morning escalated up emergency filing to the Supreme Court about that hush money sentencing. So we'll see if the Supreme Court takes that because it's unconstitutional.
It is unconstitutional. And I don't even know if the sentencing, because that wasn't a major crime, even if he would have done it, which I know we all know he didn't. It was just all bogus. But I don't think there's any jail time for that. It doesn't mean they wouldn't sentence him, because just out of spite, because God said they were going to try to do everything to stop him from Inauguration Day. And that's the reason why they're trying to do everything to stop this country. They're trying to do everything to stop President Trump. And the whole house of cards with the trying to kill him, the assassination attempts, there is so much happening right now that they know this is a life and death situation for them.
Yep.
And they will do anything and everything they possibly can. And this is not trying to bring fear to people, but I'm telling you, everybody needs to pray for this country, and we need to stand and fight and pray for the protection of President Trump, because they're just not done.
No, they're not done. But there's a thing that I don't know if he's intentionally doing this. I imagine he is. But if you watched him yesterday and you watch some of the things he's going to do, he's going at Mach gazillion out of the gate. He's going to go so fast that they're not even going to be able to keep up. He's going to be hitting them every way, and they're going to be running in circles. And that's exactly what he needs to do. Just keep hitting, hit hard, hit quickly, and keep right on hitting.
God said that was going to happen, that there was going to be fires that were set ablaze all over the place, and they're going to be so distracted and so in panic and disoriented and confused they would not be able to put out any of the fires. So he has them in a state of panic, that's for sure. And I think that, again, he can't do this without God. And I want to keep reminding people that, we obviously, both of us believe that, and everybody else that we know believe that. We know it's God behind President Trump that's giving him this ability to take out the system, to take out these giants. Because if it wasn't for God, then he would not be capable of doing it. This is a spiritual battle, and you need that spiritual part of it. And that's why we also had to pray, because God said there was going to be a how do you word that? There was going to be a restructuring of the faith leaders that were next to him, because this presidency that he's in cannot be with normal. I'm not saying every person that's by him. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not. I promise you I'm not. I don't even know who's all next to him, and God has not given me many names. I know of at least a couple, but he's just saying there's going to be a restructuring there. That's what I know for sure.
Yeah, as far as I can recall, I don't know of anyone around him currently that really is in the prophetic.
Not that I know of. Mm-mm.
Yeah, and that I know he's very intrigued by the prophetic, and that's what he needs. He needs to have the prophetic. But there are some things going on behind the scenes, I'm told firsthand, that he's listening to that, and he may bring in that type of person or that type of group to help him with a prophetic. I have a friend who was sat at the table and witnessed him look at a Kim Clement prophecy, meaning President Trump, at Mar-a-Lago, and he was I think I told this story before. He was absolutely intrigued, absolutely intrigued. And when this is before the bullet almost hit him. And General McInerney was showing that last night. He says it was the good Lord to save this country, and he took his ear and he was showing it. Can you imagine this, how close it was, and he wouldn't have been here today? You tell me that wasn't God. That's coming from a 3-star general that said that yesterday. That's amazing. So God is waking up the generals. He's waking everyone. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to try to get something for my throat. I didn't check my phone because I had to keep drinking this tea to keep my throat. But 2 generals texted in while we were talking, and one of them was talking about prophecy. I like that.
That is so. When I hear that just makes me it just makes me warm inside. It brings so much joy and encouragement, because I'll tell you, being out here and prophesying, there's a lot of backlash, and there's a lot of not good stuff that people say about you. So to hear about generals and taking the prophetic seriously, because I think right now, and there's always been a fight against prophets and prophecy in any time in human history when God has had prophets out. And it's not really surprising, because Satan wants to stop the prophetic words going forth, because he doesn't want God's people to be encouraged. He doesn't want God's people to get a heads up. He doesn't want God's people to hear what God is saying before these things happen, because then they won't fall for his traps. And so I know that there has been great persecution that comes with it. But so when I hear the generals listening, it's and saying and talking about prophecy, it's pretty awesome what God's doing right now. So 4, 5, 6 years ago, how many people were listening and taking prophets seriously compared to what there's happening and what they're doing right now?
That's a great point. It goes back, and I'm sure I've said this many times before, but it's worth repeating, because how far we've come as a world, and how far we've come in a nation because of the turmoil we've had to go through. I know a lot of generals, maybe 50 generals. I wouldn't say all of them, but I would say the vast majority of them. In the beginning, when all this stuff went down, it was always the military. The military. I had the military mindset as a general. We're going to do this. And we're going to get this. God never came up at all, ever. And now it is, like I said, General McInerney yesterday, saying the good Lord saved us and giving an example. I mean, that's amazing. You hear General Flynn giving credit to God on this, and he's working. And we needed to go through it. As much pain as that 4 years has been, we needed to go through this.
We had to as a country, because the problem is, just like, you saw right around the end of 2020, after the election, and people were like, okay, President Trump just signed these executive orders, stay in power, get the military involved, fight against the, corruption. Because really, I mean, our military, they're supposed to fight, domestic and foreign. And so we had domestic terrorists, which is this rogue regime that's trying to steal our election. And they did basically a coup d'etat against President Trump and this country. So you think about all the things that they've done. And you think about, okay, why, God, why? Because people were looking to President Trump to sign these things. They're looking to the military to do these things. And God was saying, I'm not going to share the glory. And so we had to go through these things, like you said. Sometimes it takes people to get into a desperate situation, to get on their knees, to search to God, to look to him for the answer, and not to look to a person. And so that's what I think this great awakening. God said that everything that can be shaken will be shaken. Why? To shake people out of this sleep, to shake people out of that deception, to shake people out of that fear, to shake people out of looking to another person instead of looking to him. That's why they're shaking, and he's shaking us free from the enemy in their system, what has been trying to destroy us and enslave us for so long, when people didn't realize that we truly were not living in a free country anymore. That has been kind of like an illusion. It's not what it's been. We are not a free country. We have not been a free country for a while because of these establishment elites and these global governments that are trying to just literally devour our country before our eyes. And we didn't know that there was an establishment and uniparty in our country just crushing it and doing everything to destroy it. And God allowed, since President Trump walking down that escalator with Trump Tower, there's the swamp rats were actually revealed of how many people that were actually in our government that are against the people and against this country more than we realized.
That's right. Yesterday, in my conversation with General Valley, he said something that was just really remarkable, and it kind of scares you how far we've come. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that a 4-star general said his greatest accomplishment is diversity in his unit. Not winning battles, not being prepared to save this country, but diversity. So General Valley was talking about how we need to go in and take the cartels out of Mexico because they're terrorists. And he was speaking to an active general, and the active general said, I quote, "That's a cross-border operation. We can't do that." Saying our military can't leave our shores to go fight. What about World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam? It's insanity.
But God's army can.
Yep.
God's army can cross that border because that's their territory. I mean, all this world is. So even though we can't do something physically, but God can do something spiritually and physically for us. So God is the one who fights our battles, and he's been giving me and putting me in the book of 2 Chronicles 20 more than once on multiple different occasions in this last few years, because 2 Chronicles 20 talks about this amazing story about Jehoshaphat when he was king, and you had this great multitude and army coming against them, and they were greater than the Israelites at the time. But God, they said, they were talking, they knew, God, your hand, and no foe can withstand. And then the prophet came out at the time where this great army was coming, and they said the battle is the Lord's. And so basically, hold the line, don't panic, don't get into fear. God's going to fight this battle for you, and you're not going to have to fight it. And that's exactly what they did. They started praising and worshiping, and God set up ambushes against the enemy. When they went out to fight in this battle, the enemy killed themselves. And so all God's people had to do was collect the spoil for 3 days.
Yep.
And so we are in a time of war. And God is saying, in that time of war, God's people have always collected the spoil. God's people have always had a restoration in that time of war of what the enemy had taken from God's people, and he's going to be giving it back. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen. There's a lot of things that we have to know that the battle is the Lord's and it's not ours. What we're battling is not giving up and not quitting and not giving in to what the enemy wants us to give into. And that's their power, their authority, and fear to try to paralyze us so we don't fight back.
That's right. And when the fear is, we do not fear, we trust in him. He's brought us this far, and he's going to deliver us through the next. And again, as I said before, this is the greatest time in the history of the world to be alive, because once this breaks through, and you can feel we're really close to breakthrough. And anybody doesn't think God has stepped up, just look at July with President Trump and all the things that President Trump had to go through this last year to overcome and then win this election despite being rigged. This breakthrough is going to be the glory days. The glory days are coming. That's why you got to hang tight. Push
glory
through.
days are coming. God is always going to give us a hope. So that's why I'm telling people, no matter what you're going to see, because you're going to see things. You're going to say, how is this going to work for our good? How is this going to turn around? And God's saying, it always is going to work out for our good. It's always going to work out for us where we're going to be better off than we were before. That's how it's happened. And every single time, if you look in the Word of God, of God's people coming up against a great multitude or a great army or a great king or a great empire, God's people will always come out the winner in the end. And so when you see things that you can't explain, that's when you search to God and ask him to give you strength and also to give you wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and what to say and how to get past this, because there are times of shakings coming. God has been warning this for years and years and years, but we're not going to get into fear. And if you see things that are happening in major cities, you see things that are happening because of viruses, we are not going to shelter in place to the point where, God said there was going to be a shelter in place, that they were going to say it. But God's saying he wants us to shelter in place, or he wants to lock us in, that is not for our destruction. That is for our protection, to put us, maybe to me, it's like to slow us down and to start getting more into his presence so we're less distracted. I think there's going to be so many things that are going to look bad. They're actually meant for our good. And so that's why we're going to focus on the good, focus on God, focus on his word, because God is the one who is going to defeat the enemies. And I'm telling you, he has allowed them to do certain things. He's going to move his mighty hand, and he's going to show the world who he truly is. And he is still the God who's protector. He's still the God who delivers. And he's still the God who brings judgment.
Well, I do believe we'll still have that shut-in period. I don't know if it's going to be 10 days, 3 days, 2 days, but you can just see these world events that something's going to happen where I believe he's going to shut us in, as you said, for our own safety. And we've been talking about this for a couple of years. When that day comes, we'll be praising him because we know victory is ours. And that's why, again, people in 2025, you and I have been all over the country the last few years, and it's such a pleasure to meet the beautiful people of this country and the world, because last time in North Carolina, we had somebody baptized and accepted Christ from Japan, the United Kingdom, 2 from the United Kingdom, 3 from outside of this country that I know of. And then people are changing. They want to be a part of this remnant now. They want to be activated. And this is the time, 2025, to be activated for his namesake. And knowing he's got victory and we can go out together to reach 1 billion souls, and nothing's going to stop this from happening. Victory is assured.
Nothing is going to stop God from, what's happening. And one of the things that we're going to really majorly see, and I want to get to this too, because part of the shaking and part of things of wondering what's going on is China. China's going to be a really big in this time right now because they're trying to attack our country already. They're getting tons of intel from our government because most of our government is owned by China. We know that they've had the spy balloons. Now they're being allowed to, hacking our U.S. Treasury. And of course, with the drones, I don't know if the drones were Chinese or the drones were somebody else, but they have intel, they have infiltrators in this country. They have owned a lot of our government leaders because of all the blackmail, because of the things that they know they've done with China and with other countries. And there's a lot of things that are going to go on, and people are going to start betraying one another right now. They're going to try to play both sides. It's not going to work. And China is going to get hit very, very, very hard. And God's been talking about how China is going to come down like Egypt did. There's going to be an economic shaking there. He's been talking about that for several years.
Yep.
There is going to be a governmental collapse in China. So President Xi will come down along with everybody who's with him. There are going to be major shakings in places even as big as China. God is going to bring in people that will obey him. And I don't know how long this grace period is that we're going to have before, later on you talk about the book of Revelation, that at some point the global government will come back.
They are going to come back. I believe it's a short window. Very short window, so we have to be activated. But back to what you talked about with China today, Taiwan is reporting that China cut cables in the ocean again to Taiwan. This Greenland that President Trump is going after and talking about the Panama Canal, Canada, all coming together under the United States. The main reason for that is China. It's China. To thwart China.
Really?
Yes, because China's got their hands in the Panama Canal. They got hands in Greenland trying to get the natural resources. Greenland is just filled with absolutely huge amount of natural resources that we need for future expansion in this country, including uranium and other things. So there's a reason behind it. He's just not saying, "Oh, this is beautiful Greenland. I want Greenland." It's strategic.
Right. You know that God's been talking about Greenland and prophecy for years. I went back and one of the prophecies I found was from 2022. He's been talking about Greenland for a long time. I remember the first time I think I brought up Greenland to you because, again, God keeps bringing it up. And I said that God keeps bringing up Greenland. And you talked about how there are certain things that are going on in Greenland that most people don't know about.
Right.
And so I'm not really surprised that President Trump is going after it again, because the Lord did, again, when he mentions a country that often and that much, when he mentions Greenland that many times, or he mentions China that many times, or he mentions Australia or Canada, or he mentions Taiwan, because how many times he mentioned Taiwan, how many times he mentioned Japan, all of these things are now starting to come together because what? God mentioned it, God said it, and that's the reason we're seeing all these things that God has prophesied, every single one of them. I did not know all this was connected. I didn't know all this was connected to China. But all I know is that lately he's been giving me a lot of prophecies, and one of them was China. And I think that one was from the other day. I'll get it out of what he said about China. It might have been yesterday's, but it was a lot. It was very detailed, and he goes on the establishment and again how they're owned by China, and that's the reason why China has been able to do so much in this country, because our government has allowed it. And that's what God is saying. He said, I'm going to sever and cut the ties between China controlling this country, and he's going to destroy that agreement they've made or whatever they've done between the establishment and China. It's going to be cut by God. And so he's going to destroy those lines of communication and the power struggle that they've had between the two of them, which is establishment and China. God is going to destroy it.
Yeah. Joe Biden for many years in his presidency, or fake presidency, said that he had no ties to China. Hunter was on his own. And now the pictures are coming forward that they did meet with Chinese executives. It's been a lie, and you don't see mainstream media going back and covering it up or exposing it. It's insanity.
So this is just one. This is the one I heard this morning. This is part of it. This is talking about Biden and China, and Biden and Ukraine, and but Biden and other countries. It says, a political storm is upon your enemies, a storm that is crushing their system and destroying their power. The storm will bring a flood of truth that is breaking their walls and the dam of lies, keeping them in power. Massive truth and breaking news reports of the Biden will not only expose him and his past, his ties to China, his corrupt dealings with Ukraine. It goes far beyond Burisma with Hunter. There is something so much more sinister and more evil that has taken place in Ukraine and in many foreign nations that the Biden has been involved in. This avalanche of truth that meant to bury Biden under, the establishment meant to bury Biden under to save themselves. But this truth will also collapse the walls of the establishment because there is someone in the Biden's family that is willing to let many cats out of the bag, you would say, to bring the establishment down with them so they can get revenge and peace where they don't have to keep looking over their shoulders, wondering if there's a threat to their life or anyone in their family. The Biden and his dealings will bring down the whole house of cards in D.C. They used him as a puppet and as a pawn because of all the blackmail they had on him. And he would have to say yes to everything they had told him to do. But this was one of the biggest mistakes the establishment made, was to pick the Biden. They didn't see his health issues. They didn't know of his revenge and what he has on them for protection if and when the establishment turn on him. A computer has this information, and it will soon be leaked to the public what the Biden has on the Obamas and the old guard in Washington. All this information is astounding. He wasn't as stupid as they thought. Multiple recordings will come out and crush the leaders in Washington, says the Lord. So again, God is talking about how the establishment is bringing down the Biden. That's why they're allowing certain things to come out regarding Hunter. And of course, because Biden thinks he did that umbrella pardon, that Hunter is going to be perfectly fine. And he's not, because if you're not a legitimate president, you can't be writing out pardons for people. And so there are so many things about Biden that they didn't know that Biden's been collecting on them. So if they ever sabotaged him, he was going to get revenge. And if he couldn't, which we know he can't, because that's why God calls him the Biden, because it's not really Joe anymore. But one of his family members would release all this information.
Wow. Yeah, it's Chuck Schumer was asked about that too. One of the few times that the fake news did press, like, why didn't you tell us about Joe's issues, his health decline? And it was just, he tried to play both sides of the fence. It's just the whole house of cards. It's all coming out. Remember back to the server, that the prophetic words you had about the server, and you saw the server here in Mount Pleasant. That has come out. Mm-hmm. That is starting to come out now publicly. So look for that information about Brennan, Biden, their whole secret server setup, where they did it. Didn't think they were going to get caught, and it was exactly the server that you saw.
And from what I've heard in other prophecies, there's more than one server that is going to be found. And it's going to be not only the server that I saw, but there's another server, and these are going to literally destroy. I mean, there is not one thing that they can hide that it will not be found, because God even said in his word in Luke chapter 8, verse 17, and also Luke 12 and verse 2, that nothing is hidden that will not be made known. And so I don't know if they had a secret server for, the big wigs of the global elites, away from the other little puppets. I don't know. I just know that there's more than one server.
There's
God is severing the servers, he said.
There's got to be, because, and part of it is there's got to be because of common sense, but just shows you how radical and evil and full of himself they are. You saw the sizes of that server. How do you keep this stuff hidden? Yeah. It's amazing that they thought that they could keep all this stuff hidden. I mean, it wasn't like a little small server in a closet somewhere. This was a huge farm.
That's right.
Amazing.
So there's this other prophetic word I gave out yesterday. This was from December 29th. It's called "The Establishment's Ties to China Are About to Be Cut Off." Now, one of the things that he talks about here, he talks about several different things. But he said, you'll hear the word shelter in place. So that's why I mentioned that earlier, because the Lord just said you're going to hear these words. Your enemies want to cause chaos and mayhem. They want another global lockdown. They want martial law. They want total economic collapse. They want wild and destructive weather. They want to release more bioweapons that have never been released before. They want a one world government, total surveillance with you having no form of privacy. They know your every move, so they can destroy you anytime they want if you are a threat to them. They want to destroy my eagle and my Israel, just like we were talking earlier, United States and Israel. This is what your enemies want. and what they are planning right now. So what you said earlier is going along with what God's been saying for how many years now. Then he says, I never said they would succeed. So do not fear their words, their threats, their war, their viruses, and their economy. Do not fear their attempts at blackouts and lockdowns or emergency orders. They will fall into every trap I have set for them. They will not have my United States. They will not have my Israel. They will not have my nations. Great vengeance is coming against your enemies and their plans, and great vindication is coming for my children. So that's what he says about what they're planning on doing against the United States and what they're doing against Israel. So now we know that the United States and Israel, which he said more than one occasion, that are under attack right now. We're under different, like a fifth generation warfare, I think is what General Flynn, how he describes it. Then he goes on to talk about China. And he says, do not fear China as they shake and make threats against you. So now he's talking about warfare that China is going to try to pull against this country and probably Israel. He says, but you, because they fear you, O United States. So the reason why they're trying to do these threats, the reason why they're trying to control, the reason why they are trying to do all this damage against this country is because they're afraid of this country, and they're afraid of losing control over this country. But you will see their president, their communist agenda, and not only in their land collapse, but every part of control and dominance they've had over you, my children, and your nation, it will be severed. So now he's talking about here, before he goes on, he's talking about cutting or severing the dominance and the control they've had over our country. So again, if you see the total collapse of the establishment, you're going to see the total collapse of China and their control they have over this country. Then I thought this was very interesting because he's talked about China and our government ties to China. The surveillance that China has had over you, O United States, and the intelligence that they have been given to them from the infiltrators that are in your government. The intel they have received from the spy balloons and from other forms of technology. What they snuck into your products that came into your land from theirs will be annihilated and wiped out. So now he's talking about the products they brought in that are also being used to destroy and for more surveillance. Now, I don't know what kind of products he's talking about, but he's talking about products. He goes on in more detail about the products. My children, the products that have been brought here from China that have been more damaging to your land and to your lives than you realize. It wasn't just cheap products or great technology. They put things in them to spy on you, to make you sick, and to kill you. I will destroy China's control and dominance across the globe. Their bioweapons and everything they're using against you financially to control and dominate you, O United States, will be destroyed by my hand. I will heal your land of communism and socialism, brought to this land by your so-called government. You're trying to control and bribed and blackmailed leaders are about to be brought out in the open. The establishment ties to China is about to be cut off by me. So before I go on, because there's something else that he says about China, I'll let you say anything if you want to say anything.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That, you know, the products that have come in that can spy on us. One is being computers and TV chips. We know that. Mm-hmm. The other is I was told that some of that software got into 5G towers. That could make you sick. Insanity. And then the first part, when you're talking about shelter in place, martial law, the bioweapons, just yesterday they announced that they are coming out with a vaccine for the bubonic plague. Why would you need a vaccine for the bubonic plague?
They're talking about the bubonic plague again?
Bubonic plague, yeah. Yesterday, they're working on a vaccine for bubonic plague. So they're going to throw it all against the everything at it. But God wins.
You know, and I wonder if that was one of the 11 that Fauci's guy said that was going to be released. And it honestly could be, because if they're talking about a vaccination for it, that's probably one for sure that was probably on that list of 11 that they were going to release. But remember, I think it was it a year or so ago when God talked about they were going to release so many things they were going to do within 10 years.
Yep.
They were going to release all of it in 1 year.
Yep.
So if they were going to release just like one virus a year, you could see that 11, there maybe, 1 year they're going to add more than one. But you can see how all of a sudden, if they're going to they just dropped, at one point, they dropped COVID on us in 1 year. But now 11, that is, you're going from one extreme to like another extreme. And you already know that they've already released some of them, because if that many people were sick during Christmas time, just think about what else they're going to try to do for, again, right after Trump is inaugurated. So they're not done. That's why this shelter in place could be, again, I don't want people to be afraid of, if there is some type of what President Trump says, or, people are mentioning you have to lock down. That's not to destroy you like COVID was. This is different. This will not be the same type of lockdown. This is not for control. Because President Trump, when he did it last time, he really did thought it was for our protection.
Yep.
He didn't realize, he was being told one thing, and they literally, got him until he realized what was going on. But it was, nobody was really prepared for that. Even though they were talking about COVID before President Trump even took office, they were talking about a major pandemic that was going to happen during his presidency. I don't know how they knew that, but all of a sudden Fauci said, before Trump took office, before he even won that election, he was talking about in 2015 that there was going to be a plague release in the next 4 years, or a problem with a pandemic in the next 4 years. Sorry.
And just this week, they announced that COVID-19 was released earlier than thought. I think what did we declare it in March? It's finally. But I was in Israel that December of 2019, and that's the first time I got COVID. It was a group from China came in and gave it to our group. I thought it was just a cold flu. I didn't know it was COVID, but that was the first time I got it. That was December of 2019.
My brother-in-law had it in November of 2019. And what was really weird about it, because no one knew about this stuff before, but he had such a cough, and it was really bad respiratory. It just seemed like a cold flu, and they kept saying it was a virus. But it was something that was unusual. There was really weird symptoms that came with it, and he was sick for way longer than people would normally be sick for a virus. But they kept saying this virus. And all of a sudden, when the COVID-19 came out, and I'm like, and I was talking to my sister, I'm like, that had to have been what he had before, because that makes sense. So when they said it was released in January or whatever, the first, recorded, documented, cases were over here, that was a lie. They released it over here before they even said anything, and they just kept, no one knew about it, so they just kept saying it was a virus and just blowing it off and not giving anybody anything for it.
Well, that's kind of the point, too. These other viruses may have been released already, and they just haven't manifested because it took us to March. What's that, 3-4 months before it really came that everybody got it. So it took a little bit of time. But never forget this. People came up with good doctors like Dr. Zelenko and the doctors that stood on truth, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, things that could help people. And then you have the social media that now we know was paid for by pharmaceutical companies to stop this, to deplatform people, saying this is horse dewormer, not to use it, and even use the name. I remember, I think we were on YouTube then before they canceled us, and you couldn't even say the name ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or you get banned. They killed people. They killed people.
Yeah. They took down those videos. I remember there was a whole bunch of doctors that were in Washington talking about it.
Yeah.
And they took down any video that had anything to do with it because they didn't want people to know about it. And I remember they're making fun of President Trump when President Trump was talking about those drugs, and then talking about bleach or whatever. And then of course they took it out of context and they made fun of it. But ivermectin, it was funny how they knew ivermectin was a really good antiviral medicine. They've known about this for a long time. But again, they didn't want people to take those kind of things because it destroyed the COVID virus. Yep. And so they wanted people to do their things because, again, people are like, why would they do that? Because they want depopulation. And also, if they have this virus, they can also cause more control and take more of your freedoms away. And think about how many freedoms that people literally gave away during COVID. Now, people nowadays would not give up those same freedoms that they did back in 2020. but we didn't know. So a lot of people did give up more than they would right now. So they tried to do this again. It's not going to work. People are going to resist. People are going to fight back. And people are not going to just take whatever the WHO and whatever, those people start saying and declaring emergencies and whatever they're going to try to do. God's actually going to destroy the WHO, and I can't wait for that to happen. But there's a lot of things that are going to come down the pike. He's talked about the World Health Organization, the WHO, he's going to bring down, and also the World Economic Forum he's bringing down. Any of those entities, any of those world global government things, he was going to bring down. And he talked about redoing our tax system. He's going to bring down the IRS. He's going to bring down the Federal Reserve. So there's a lot of things, again, a lot of shaking going on. A lot of things are going to change. But I'm telling you, our tax system is so not what it is supposed to be. It is a form of slavery. God talked about it. That's how Pharaoh got God's people, was slavery. He literally taxed them into a slavery. And that's what's happened in this country. And God is really going to shake things up. People are going to realize how much we did not have in this country that we should have had that belongs to us.
And that's part of the golden age. It's all going to be boomeranging back to the COVID thing with ivermectin. Though one of the other key things about that is if ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine were known to be able to help, they couldn't have passed emergency authorization to make the vaccines. Right. And that was the key. That was the moneymaker. That was the golden calf right there. The other is you see President Trump literally every other day, if not every day that he speaks, talk about tariffs. He's going somewhere with his tariffs. Our taxes are going to be changed dramatically under President Trump, and he is going to go back to tariffs.
Yeah, and we should. And the reason why, again, people ask, why would our government take all these things away, and why would they tax us, and why are they giving all this money to our enemies? It's because they were trying to break us financially. And because you can't be a strong country if you're broke. Right. And the reason why they wanted us to be broken, and I'm going to go over this part because this is actually talking about money, is with the whole thing with China too. It's because they wanted a one world currency. But you can't have the dollar that was a dominant currency throughout the world. You can't have that if you want a one world currency and turn everything digital. So you had to destroy that currency and also destroy the strength of that country militarily and financially along with it. So they did everything they could to destroy our country. I mean, they literally tore it from limb to limb. Everything they possibly could do to disrupt it, they did. But it's not working because God says it's coming alive again, and so is the church. But in the same prophecy, there's a part of the debt you owe United States. He talked about the debt clock. It was like last week, I think, sometime, or was maybe the beginning of this week. He talked about the debt clock again, and how that's not the debt we owe, and he's going to show us what that debt really is. But anyway, part of the debt you owe United States was your government paying your enemies like China to spy and to destroy you. They paid them with your money, and all the evil corruption will soon be no more. Your government allowed Chinese hackers into many servers and many computer systems and programs to further solidify their alliance against you. China Joe, as he is referred to, and all the Bidens will be brought down, but so will every person in the old guard. He calls the establishment people the old guard, like Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and many others in Washington. These walls that have been built up with China will completely collapse in front of the world, says the Lord. So that's part of the shaking. The reason why he has to restructure and redo another financial system is because this financial system is so corrupt and has enslaved so many people. He talked about the credit industry and how they use the credit against you, how they use interest rates against you, how they're using the tax system against you, how they use Wall Street against you. It is so evil and so corrupt and so demonic that God literally has to tear it limb from limb.
Wow. Yeah, you just can feel that. People think too the financial situation is just because President Trump's is coming back in that everything's fine. Nah, it's not fine. The banks are going to be flipped upside down. I believe that when this crash happens, though, it won't be a crash the size of 2008, where it'll take us a long time to get out of it. We'll get out fairly quickly because I believe that'll be the redistribution of God giving it back to those who need to be, but. It's coming. It's right before us.
You just said big banks. Okay. So even though President Trump gets in office, these big banks are still there. They're still owned by the establishment's still there.
Yep.
And the establishment was still there last time. Okay, this is the reason why there has to be a political reset, not just an election. It can't, there's more than that. He said the big banks will come crashing down. My children, these banks were managed and controlled by the establishment and the global regime. They are plans of depressions, recessions, and all their bailouts while many lost everything. So he's been talking right in this paragraph how all these recessions, depressions, and any type of economic ups and downs was all planned by the establishment and by the big banks. He said, I will expose the 2008 recession and other times of an economic collapse that happened and show the money where your government gave these big banks and how they all had this planned out to destroy you while they ripped everything they could from you to enslave you even more. I will show the Great Depression and the plan to change this nation as in its direction. It went to strengthen the establishment while they weakened every other part of your nation and the citizens. Every economic hiccup and collapse your enemies were behind. Don't you see? These things don't just happen. They were acts of war.
Wow.
So God's talking about how the Great Depression was one of the ways that the establishment used to weaken this country even further for them to gain more control over this country. And it started way, way back there with the Great Depression. So again, God's been saying this has been going on for over 100 years. We know that they brought in that made our country in a corporation instead of it being a republic. That's what really started everything. But this really brought it down financially, and they had more control with this like death grip over this country was started really with the Great Depression. They had more control over people and the economy. So God is going to rip all of it apart and show exactly why all of these hiccups happen, economic ups and downs, was all planned by them.
Yeah, when you do a little digging into 2008 and the Great Depression, the real deal, or the Great Deal, it is corruption at the highest level. And people think, well, they're going to hold the banks accountable. No, you put the banks in a situation that they have more control now because of that. It's just, it's pure evil. They created this, and they created it on purpose. There's no doubt about it. Yep, that's right. Wow.
The big banks are part of the establishment. That's why they get bailed out. For me, like I said this before, for making all these really bad investments and then just really, being the ones who caused the 2008 with that housing bubble. Why wouldn't you bail the people out? Why would you bail the banks out? They're the ones who created it. They shouldn't have given out these loans to people they knew they couldn't pay it back. They did it on purpose. Again, all of these things were done on purpose. And because of that 2008 crash, then they did all the 2008 with the restructuring of the car industry and all these different things you think about occurred back in 2008. All that bailout. It was ridiculous. It actually weakened the economy more, and it caused more disruptions in the economy, and it caused more disruptions with people. Then, of course, the banks weren't affected because the government paid them, and they said, hey, we're going to cause this. Just to let you know, we're going to bail you out, so don't worry about it. So there was a plan. The big banks and the establishment worked together in causing all of these economic problems.
Yeah, it's absolute insanity. I go back to 2 months before 2008. I happened to be in San Francisco across the street from Wells Fargo's headquarters, and the number 3 person at Wells Fargo sits down next to me, tells me what's going to happen before it happens. He's just sweating bullets. He says this is going to be a huge crash. And I'm like, what is he talking about? Because nobody knew what was going on. And his exact words is, we were doing mortgages to dogs and cats, and we knew it. Literally, they would take a dog's name or a cat's name and putting housing in them. That's how bad it got, just for greed. And then they rebundle these in so many different ways and corruption and spin them and sell them. And it just got so confusing. And it was just a house of cards.
You got to think about how bad this is when you think about when you go buy a house, okay, and you get a loan from one bank. And all of a sudden, you can have a loan for 2 and 3 years, and all of a sudden, every year, another bank, you get a letter in the mail saying, "Okay, we have your mortgage." What? I didn't sign paperwork with you, so how is that legal? I didn't sign that paper. Well, they bought out that loan. Why'd they buy out that loan? What is going on? There's so many things that are so abnormal. The big banks, big pharma, big insurance companies. Now, I just found out. I know we have to close here soon, but right before, I think it was back in November. Liberty Mutual got rid of fire insurance in California.
Yes.
And all of a sudden now you have all this fire that's going on. So all these people are losing houses because of this fire. It sounds a lot to me like Maui. I'm telling you, something is going on. There's a reason for these things that are happening, and people have to be aware this is not by accident. It's not by chance. They're causing these things to cripple this country even more. There's a lot of these things that are going on financially, but there's also things that are going on in California that they're trying to destroy.
And wait till the exposure comes to insurance companies. Insurance companies, you know, the death of that executive just was the tip of the iceberg of what's coming. Their business plan is to delay, deny, and then take you to court. You're paying premiums for something that's supposed to happen, and they're going to delay, hope that you'll just go away, that you won't even follow up on it, or then deny and say you'll just forget about it. And then if you don't, and you take you to court and fight you on it. That's their business plan. That's insanity. That's evil.
Yep. And God is bringing that whole house of cards and the whole entire system down. So again, there are things that are going on in this country that are not constitutional. They are not legal, but people think they are because they've been going on for so long and we didn't know anything different. And so that's why God had to allow this darkness. That's why he had to allow, like you said, this being uncomfortable, because he had to show what was really truly going on. But God, he's got it. God wins. We win. And this whole thing is coming down. And I'm telling you, it will be like the land of Goshen. It will be like Egypt. It's going to be so unprecedented and so amazing what God's going to do. And no one will deny that the great I am still lives. And he is definitely not dead.
Amen. Julie Green, it's good to be back with you again.
Now it's Lanzini. Now it's Moses.
No, that's just wide. He was in such a great position in front of goal, and you'd expect him to score from there, but somehow he's missed it.
Song Bilong kicks it up from the goal kick. Sacco. Thrust towards the front line. And it's Mzonzi. Winston Reid boots it upfield. Winston Reid needed to come up with a better ball.
I timed this run brilliantly, and I think he has every right to be a little annoyed with the passer then, and I think he's letting him know right now about that. Just a little more behind it was needed.
Crondelli. He's in! It's Andy Carroll! The power of Andy Carroll! And again, they pile on the misery.
It's part of the game, Peter. It has to get ruthless. Sympathy just doesn't play a part.
And it's Mzonzi. He's made certain that won't get through. Tries a through ball. Llorente! Loose ball, who's going to get that? He's put it wide.
Oh look, the chance was an unexpected gift, which he should have taken. That wasn't a pretty sight.
So. Winston Reid. Aim forward. Now it's Carroll. Llorente tries lifting it over. Iborra. Referee's given a throw. And he has been fouled there. Winston Reid. Noble. Now it's Lanzini. Lanzini with the ball through. Goalkeeper's ball. Crondelli. And it's Llorente. Nzonzi. Mark Noble tries the route one option. Lanzini looking to get on the end of this. Keeper's got good distance on that. No way through there. Sacco. Ball's loose, who's getting there? Nzonzi. Beto gets it upfield. Tompkins does well to read it and intercepts. Nzonzi. 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 Ibora looking to get on the end of this. Here it is now, surely! Hits one! And that's wide. Son. Noble. Winston Reid. Mark Noble knocks it towards the front. Now the pass. Chance! Corner it is. Up for a header! The whistle has gone and it is all over. Well, that's the way to launch the campaign. Now they can look ahead with confidence and comfort. Your final thoughts, Jim?
Listen, ideally, I've been hit by it too.
So that's got things underway. Who do you think this turns on, Jim?
I would think Andy Carroll's physical presence is an obvious choice. Not only his aerial ability, backed up by lots of aggression, but he shouldn't be underestimated for his groundwork. That left foot is cannonball material.
Yes, he'd be my pick too. It's going to be all about how they get the best out of him. Noble looks to slip it through. Clears it out of harm's way. Tries a long pass towards the front. Aimed forward. It's got through to him. And it's Carroll. Good challenge, he just stood firm. Tompkins tries to get it forward quickly. Tries a through ball. Now here's the through ball. Moses. Now the pass. Sacco. Now it's Moses. It is early, but the game hasn't yet sparked into life. Passes it through. Aimed long and direct. Moses gets it back. Cresswell. Some astute defending to ensure they got no further. Song. Tries the route one option. Looks like a good ball through. It's Andy Carroll! And it's a goal! Oh, beautifully dispatched. There was no reaching that.
Now that's what I call finishing, right in the corner. He knew instinctively who was where and didn't need to waste any time weighing things up. That's a cracking goal.
Deadlock broken, it's 1-0.
Yeah, and they know there's plenty of work left in this one, Peter, before they can actually say that the job is over.
And it's Sacco. Tries to dink it in. Out wide to the right. Oh, well intercepted, really alert to the danger. Spoon forward. Lanzini needed to come up with a better ball.
I timed this run brilliantly, and I think he has every right to be a little annoyed with the passer then, and I think he's letting him know right now about that. Just a little more behind it was needed.
It's a brilliant interception. Carroll. Cresswell pumps it forwards. It's come loose. Now it's Moses. No surprise at all that this is the guy who's had such a positive impact.
Well, having that sort of player in your side is reassuring because the rest of the team knows he can make his influence count at any stage. It's simply part of his package. When he really wants to, this fella scores.
Noble. And it's Sacco. Good clearance and very necessary. Cresswell pumps it upfield. Loose ball, who's going to get there?